Some in the college basketball national community may call it crazy to think that West Virginia may already be primed to make an NCAA tournament appearance in year one of men's basketball coach Ross Hodge's tenure. But the way that this program is investing in this club through its NIL, which is now in just the world of pay for play, that is definitely a strong possibility. And I'll say here on April 23rd of the year of our Lord 2025 that is going to be the case. I'm Carson Fox, and thanks for tuning in for another edition of Fox on West Virginia Mountaineer Sports. And tonight we're talking basketball. Trust me, I want to bring you my unfiltered thoughts so bad on the roster management operation as we're in the midst, almost the end of the spring football portal window. I have so much to say about what's been happening over these last couple of weeks and my, again, unfiltered thoughts on that. But it's not time yet. The portal's not closed. I know West Virginia has a lot of things cooking with on-campus visitors and negotiations and stuff like that. So until the dust settles a little bit more, it's not appropriate, I feel like, yet for me to make those full comments because, man, and I almost made this video about the men's basketball program last night. I'm glad I didn't because of a new transfer addition in Abraham Oyedir. Yesterday it was Harris Elizevich. So it's just like the timing with it. 24 hours changes so much of the news and the context of the argument and conversation. So, man, it's crazy. Again, posting this video here on Wednesday, April 23rd. It's only been 20 days, y'all. 20 days since Ross Hodge's introductory press conference, coming off the, I don't even know what you call it, like what word you'd want to call it, spiteful end to the Darren DeVries situation, and then what seemed like forever kind of hire to get to finally Ross Hodge. And now, man, he has been blazing on the recruiting trail, and that's why I feel like it's appropriate that I can weigh in, because with 8 commits for the basketball team now, either committed and or signed, that West Virginia, it has got its core. Last season, the 2024-25 season, which just ended, so we'll call it last season, West Virginia was only playing about 8 guys. So if West Virginia follows that kind of same mold, and I hope they don't. I hope there's enough depth there that West Virginia can play 10 to 12 guys. West Virginia has its core. And I think just right now that you can kind of pencil together a starting 5 for next year, because it's pretty set. There might be some rotational roles within this starting lineup, but for the most part, you kind of have your 1 through 5. So let's kind of talk about it. I think first and foremost, the initial take that I have on this, and listen to a really good podcast earlier on my drive home from work, Locked On West Virginia, with Mountaineer Paul, and he's saying on his show that West Virginia is investing somewhere in the ballpark of $6 to $7 million in this roster. So the first question that comes to my mind is, what? How? Where is this money coming from? The reception was lukewarm, I feel like, to put it best, by Mountaineer Nation in the hiring of Ross Hodge. It seemed like the outside perception of Coach Hodge was much more praiseworthy than it felt like by the internal reception of Mountaineer Nation. Some potentially split, I feel like, on Jared Calhoun at Utah State. The outside dark horse shot and the potentiality of head coach Bob Huggins coming back. Or going with maybe a younger hire at the Division II level, and the coach from, what was it, Fairmont State. So there's just so much, I feel like, that was unsettled. But then the way that Coach Hodge was received at the Pitt baseball game and the social media videos that came out from that, then the press conference itself and his takes. I mean, you couldn't feel you probably felt a letter grade better about Coach Hodge, but thinking to yourself, okay, let's wait and see how he does in recruiting. And bam, in 20 days, he's gone out there with this, fat stack of King Midas's gold, and they've gone out there and they've invested in arguably two of, like some of the top, let's say 10 to 15 players on the transfer portal market. I take a grain of salt sometimes in these transfer portal rankings as compared to high school rankings, because I feel like there's a whole different scale of you're buying into the potential of a high school prospect, whereas you're looking at more of a finished product in a transfer portal. So how are you going to rate them on a 5 or 4 scale? So I take that with a grain of salt. I look at their past production. I look at what they did at their other schools, the competition that they played against. So when I give my analysis on some of these players that West Virginia's brought in, there's nobody out there, I feel like, who was doing it at another Power 4 institution, who was taking his taking his talents into the deep weekends of the NCAA tournament. But I mean, there is a lot to like about some of them. So starting off, I guess we can start with the downside, because we lit it off by saying, wow, about the investment that who knows is making into this program, whether it's the university with funds from Darren DeVries' buyout, or where athletic director Ren Baker is coming up with this money. If you believe into the scuttlebutt on social media that perhaps that there were some boosters who weren't necessarily thrilled with the Coach Hodge hire, and where they're finding these, what line item you're finding this money to invest into the NIL resources. But I will say I'm really sad to see pretty much the entire Darren DeVries team gone. His 3 high school commit, as I said, whenever he was announced as Indiana's new head coach, and I had that Spitfire video for you from a few weeks ago. I felt I wasn't as sad to see Darren DeVries go. I feel like there wasn't much more than just this 1-year investment into him, so I wasn't necessarily emotionally there just yet, like I would be with a coach like Coach Huggins. But losing all of these players, I think the one who really, really, really wanted to stay, but just the way things are in year of 2025 transfer portal world, Sincere Harris being one of the last holdouts, I feel like, of the starting caliber players on the team. So Sincere Harris off to Cincinnati, KJ Tenner, Murray State, Jonathan Powell clashed with DeVries. He looks for brighter and tries to move up to North Carolina. Let's see how that goes, James Okonkwo. And then Amani Hansberry going to Virginia Tech I would say didn't have that kind of emotional appeal to West Virginia, or gravitas, if you want to call it that say a Sincere Harris had. And to pick up, following Chester Frazier, who didn't get interviewed to stay as part of the staff, even though it sounds like he wanted to be still retained on the staff, which probably would have kept Hansberry and or Sincere Harris. Instead, Hansberry following Frazier now down to Virginia Tech. So many holdover, or I don't want to say cast-offs, that's not the right word, but so many people, it seems like, moving from West Virginia to Virginia Tech, both football and basketball, so that's kind of funny. West Virginia loses out on all 3 of its high school commits, and Kelvin O'D, Trent McLean, and then Braden Hawthorne, but still re-recruiting him, did have a recent visit. I'll talk about him later. But then everybody who was, I'm looking at guys like Dylan J, who we didn't see this year. Again, Abraham Oyedir, who redshirted as well. Ofri Neve, holdover from Josh Eilert's team of 2 seasons ago. The only player to stick around for a whole season. Then redshirts. Feels as if Coach Hodge, was just really cleaning the slate. Just moving on from everybody. You don't know how much he made those comments to say, hey, we're going to try and help you out to find a different location, but here we're providing you this opportunity. Aiden Tagaloa Nelson, I feel like, had the freest of rides for almost 3 years. I mean, never played on the football team, never played on the basketball team, got free meals, got free gear, got a free education, just slid on through the Neil Brown era and the last couple of years with the basketball team, cut from the football team, so he's hitting the portal. And then arguably maybe the weirdest case, I feel like, in West Virginia athletics, I would say definitely going back to Charles Woods a few years ago, but maybe even further down the well, and Tavita Fanau, of like 2 recruiting classes that he was apparently signed for under then head coach Bill Stewart. Jaden Stone, we hardly knew ye, had this mysterious injury right before game number 1, and then we never saw or heard from him again. No reports on him. He enters the transfer portal last Thursday evening. So what a weird situation with Jaden Stone. So it's completely a whole new slate. So let's talk about the additions. We've now talked about the subtractions 11 minutes in. So first guy that West Virginia brought in, this was back on April 7th, was Harlan Obioa from UNC Wilmington. Played 3 seasons at Niagara. The first West Virginia 7-footer since Jamie Smulligan and Rob Summers in the mid-2000s under, it was like the transitionary year from Coach Beeline over to Coach Huggins. So awesome to see. Yeah, we've had some guys who are 6'10", 6'11", throughout the pipeline, but to have a true 7-footer, great to see. Great, I can't believe it's taken 20 years. And it seems like that's how Florida was able to do it. If you can have a 7-footer out there, it's just a physical presence inside. And West Virginia, unfortunately, has really lacked that, I feel like, since Derek Culver moved on to the G League and skipped out on his last year of eligibility before NIL really became a thing at WVU. So getting Obioa in the mold, 7 foot, 280, redshirt senior, wanting to move up, average 20 minutes per game while playing over 30 minutes twice, only fouled out once. Tells me he's a little bit smarter of a player, I feel like, than Eduardo Andre. I think that's what kind of unfortunately got Eduardo Andre into foul trouble. He would add on those, pack on those fouls, sometimes had more fouls than points in some games in which he participated in. And then just kind of just wore out, I felt like, as the season progressed. Missed most of his season beforehand. So kind of to try and compare Andre to Obioa for this segment, I think just a little bit, if he has a little bit better stamina, a little bit better smarts on knowing when to foul and when not to, because teams are going to come at you in the paint. I like what he gives you. 9.2 points per game, 6 rebounds per game, 1.2 blocks per game. Had 5 double-doubles on the season, including a season-high 23 in a double-double effort against William and Mary back on February 24th. Just going to have to adjust to a bigger, faster game, and he may just end up splitting time. Again, 20 minutes per game, so that's really half the game. So if West Virginia can go out there and find a complement to him with some size, none of the other guys that I'm about to talk about tonight are bigger than 6'9", so he is the true enforcer center in the paint. We'll have to see how West Virginia does to try and complement him. So for right now, I would pencil him in at that number 5 starter inside. Moving on, Brennan Laurent. This is a player from University of North Texas, previously at FAU, a team that went on and made the Final Four 2 seasons ago. Was it 2 seasons ago? Or he was part of a team that made the Final Four, that FAU team. I think I'm, out of everybody in this class, I may be most excited about Brennan Laurent. And I think it's because of his athleticism, 23 dunks on the season, an alley-oop machine, plus his familiarity with Coach Hodge. He was a first-team all-conference member and the American Conference's 6th man of the year. So huge addition inside. Came off the bench, interestingly enough, but still averaged 25 minutes per game. Shot an awesome 57%, 72% from the free throw line. Anytime you see a guy, I feel like 72% or higher at the forward position, you're pretty good. Nothing irks me more watching basketball than missing free throws. And it's the big men who you got to watch out for, because guards, you feel a lot more comfortable about them shooting 75% plus. So when forwards shoot 72%, I feel pretty good about that. 12 points per game, 5 rebounds per game, a block per game. I really like his game. Watching his transfer tape on YouTube, his game in the post is pretty old school. He's trying to back you down. He's strong. He's like a bull in the China shop in there, trying to dunk it on you, and has really good post moves. And another thing, looking through his numbers for the season, the majority of Laurent's top performances on the season came on the road for North Texas. So, interesting to me. I think that's something that really travels in the Big 12, given that West Virginia has to make some of those long-distance trips, and now even longer, going to the teams in the Mountain Conference, or the Mountain Time Zone, in BYU, Utah, and the Arizona schools. So for West Virginia, have to go to Texas Tech, have to go to Kansas State, have to go to, again, those states that I talked about. If you can travel and be a leader on this program, at a senior, 6'9", 215, right behind Obioa, is the biggest guy on the team, an enforcer, that carries. That's going to carry in this conference, and the guy that opponents are going to cross on their list of who they have to focus on. So moving on, West Virginia did get a high school signee that Coach Hodge brought over from North Texas. So DeAndre DJ Thomas Jr., 3-star signee. Coach Hodge, reading an article about what he had to say about Thomas's commitment, previous signing to North Texas, and now bringing him with him to West Virginia. He thinks he has the game that can translate to the Big 12. A top 75 forward in the nation from Allen High School in the state of Texas, a team that went to the 6A Division I state semifinals and lost to the eventual state champ Duncanville. He's also part of a really good AAU program. I don't know if necessarily Thomas Jr. is going to see Jonathan Powell type of minutes, but he's going to get to practice alongside Laurent, Jackson Fields, who I'll talk about in a little bit, also Chance Moore. If he can make it in practice, and looking at the size, he's going to fit in. Okay. I feel like at 6'7", 210, if he can fit in, bang against those guys in practice, then that can translate over to the Big 12 game. He might get to see some time. Again, because we're only talking about 8 guys on the team, we'll have to see how it continues to fill out with that kind of depth. So this was the big one. This was the big one for West Virginia. According to Mountaineer Paul in his video, I'll take him at his word here with the analytics, that he's the second highest paid player that West Virginia's made an offer to, out of commitments in its signees. Is Honor Huff. He's a guard, 5th-year guy, only 5'10", 170 pounds, but you watch him play, you look at some of his pictures, and like, man, you wouldn't think that he is just only 5'10", 170. From Chattanooga, committed on April 12th. He was the nation's leading three-point shooter from a season ago. You got to be impressed, I feel like, when West Virginia beat out the likes of Alabama, Auburn, Kansas, North Carolina, and 10 other teams that made the NCAA tournament for his services. Why would he choose West Virginia? So, wow, getting him in. West Virginia now has its sharpshooter. A Brooklyn, New York native, and I know that always, like we think of those Brooklyn players. We revere them in the same mold as, Truck Bryant, Kevin Jones, Devin Ebanks. So, here we go. West Virginia's got its Brooklyn kid. 5th-year veteran, plays bigger than he's listed, as I mentioned. 4th most taken threes in the nation at 10.6 per game. So that's a lot. That's a lot of threes for one guy to take. But he hit 42% of them. He played 36.5 minutes per game, so he added, a lot of tread worn off the tires, I feel like, at Chattanooga, but that was a guy that you can consistently, rely on as a sharpshooter. Now, 86 assists to 51 turnovers, not necessarily a point guard, but no worry, no problem, because West Virginia ended up getting its starting point guard. So penciled that Honor Huff in there at the 2 guard. So now we're kind of filling out our roster. Laurent at the 4, Obioa at the 5, Honor Huff I'd put at the 2. So moving on, Jackson Fields, a 6'8" senior forward, 210 pounds from Troy, Neil Brown's old stomping grounds. On April 13th, West Virginia got this commitment. I was really, really impressed, but also kind of intrigued and curious because I'm wondering what was the pitch that Coach Hodge used to get Jackson Fields to commit after Laurent committed, because similar size, similar games I'll talk about in a season. Was it you're going to come here and be a starter, or was Fields comfortable with coming off the bench behind Laurent? Because these players are smart. In today's world of recruiting, they're always looking at the depth charts, what teams are doing to fill out their position. So knowing Laurent was already coming to West Virginia, he knows that he's going to have to try and contend with Laurent for that starting 4 position. So if it was the latter, that comfortable in coming off the bench, or he might be the starter over Laurent because Laurent came off the bench at North Texas. Sometimes you see guys kind of shy away from that, especially if in their last year of eligibility. They want that firm commitment that they're going to be the guy at the starter and not have any competition there. So I really think that West Virginia in this situation is privileged to get Fields. He was a starter on a conference championship winning team that went to the NCAA tournament in Troy. So averaging only 8 points per game, 5 rebounds per game, but shot 49% from the floor. I feel like what West Virginia is getting in Fields, I know doesn't compare in this to points per game and rebounds per game, is a guy like Amani Hansberry. He's 30 pounds lighter, though, but shoots a better 3-point percentage than Hansberry did. So many open looks I feel like that Hansberry just clanked, and I just love the inside game that Fields has. He is athletic. I think he's a little bit longer than Laurent, too. Just one of those guys that has those long arms and long legs and just are the prototypical kind of guy that you want in your starting lineup in basketball. That can block shots. So just really like that combination. I feel like between both Fields and Laurent at that 4 position can be interchangeably depending upon game flow, injuries, anything like that. So really privileged, I feel like, to have Fields in this lineup who can be more than just a bench guy. Can be a solid contributor for this program. So then next was finally West Virginia got its point guard in Jasper Floyd, 5th year, 6'3", 195 pounds from North Texas. So the general, I felt like, for Coach Hodge's team there in Texas last year. 36 game starter, 9 points per game, 4 assists per game. He was also the steals leader on the nation's 3rd best scoring defense. So by the transitive property there, you have a pretty damn good defender, I feel like, in Jasper Floyd. Also shoots a healthy 42%, 77% from the free throw line. Not a volume 3-point shooter, but I like his size. Again, 6'3", 195. That's going to translate just like Javon Small did to this West Virginia program a season ago. Also really liked what I saw on his highlight tape in the pick and roll game with Laurent. So if they have that continuity already, there's a lot of 2-man game, I feel like, in today's world of college basketball with the free-flowing, spread-it out kind of nature that offenses have. So you see a lot, and we saw a lot out of that out of Coach DeVries' offense this past year with Small. If you're going to run a lot of 2-man pick and roll type of game with Laurent or Fields, Floyd's the kind of guy, they have that kind of continuity, can pass out of it. But in my opinion, you need another bucket getter. So if you got Floyd at your 1, Honor Huff at your 2 guard as your shooter, you have Laurent, who you may argue might be a defense first kind of guy, or Fields, and then Harlan Obioa, their inside presence at center at 7 foot. You want one more scorer. You just need that kind of guy, who's going to score you close to 20 points per game. Same with Honor Huff. Those guys are going to give you somewhere in the ballpark of 10 to 15 at your other starting positions or fewer. So West Virginia in between, the big one I feel like for this team, West Virginia got another guard in Chance Moore, bigger guard, senior, 6'6", 210, Chance Moore out of St. Bonaventure. This was a commitment late Thursday for this program. Played the second most minutes, 34 per game for a St. Bonaventure squad. It was kind of a mixed bag, I felt like, for the season. Just 22-11. Did win a game in the A10 tournament, but got knocked out in the first round of the NIT. Didn't make the NCAA tournament. Not really a prolific scorer, but what I really like out of Chance Moore's game, watching his highlight tape, he's a slasher. Especially going right, using his right hand, I felt like more so than his left of what I saw out of his highlights. He's a guy who likes contact a lot. 60% of his shot attempts were taken in the paint, and he's not afraid to bang against somebody. And a lot of the times I felt like watching his tape, when he missed shots, he's right there for an offensive rebound. Average almost 2 per game in the offensive rebounding category. So you're missing your layups, and we've seen, sometimes I feel like for 20 years when West Virginia goes in those cold spells, shooting the ball, the best thing that can help you out is to get offensive rebounds. So I'm always partial to guys who can do that and give you second chance attempts. So he's a putback kind of guy. I think he's tenacious, really never gives up on a possession, second, third effort guy. You need those nights when you're just not knocking down shots. So I love that about Chance Moore's game. I also like that he's a shot blocker. Led St. Bonaventure with 27 on the season. West Virginia has these guys now. So if you have one primarily at the guard, if you're going to want to go more stout defensively, Honor Huff's just not hitting his shot some nights. West Virginia wants to go bigger. Floyd, Moore, Laurent, and Obioa inside, defense first. Chance Moore's your guy, so bring him in. I just think it's kind of he will be more of a game flow dependent type of player. Again, just kind of you kind of get a feeling whether it's going to be a high scoring affair, low scoring affair, depending upon the opponent you're playing, home versus away, how you've been playing lately, especially in those dog days of January, February, and March when you're in your conference schedule slate. So again, I don't necessarily think that Chance Moore is going to be a starter. I would think he will be a guy that would come off the bench again at that 2 guard, maybe even the 3 position if you want to put him in like a small forward because of his size. But he played a lot of minutes for St. Bonaventure. How he gels within Coach Hodge's system, because I looked at St. Bonaventure's schedule and it wasn't really all that daunting. So to only be a guy to kind of put up the statistics he had in the scoring department, I'm just thinking to myself, could there have been more for Chance Moore? I don't necessarily. I look at a guy like Fields of what he did for Troy. I feel a little bit more intrigued comparatively to Moore. Now I know Moore is a 4-star transfer prospect, so hey, maybe the guys who do this full-time professionally, looking at it at these transfer portal recruiting rankings, know something that I don't, and that his game will translate better to the Big 12 than say a Jackson Fields. Or a Brennan Laurent, even out of the American Conference instead of out of the A10. So really curious to see how he fits into the mold, but I would just say right now I think he will be coming off the bench, one of those 3 guys that might see time in that former fashion. So here was the big one. This one was over the weekend, Easter weekend. The guys who do this professionally for a living complaining about having to be on the computer, checking Twitter, because all of this news breaking all the time about these commitments. So this was the big one in Trayson Eaglestaff, 6'6", 190 pound senior forward from North Dakota. Committed on Easter Sunday and apparently just signed earlier this evening as I'm recording this video here on Tuesday. So what can I say? And I think that the easiest comp is someone like a Jimmer Fredette out of BYU. You look at his size, a white, lanky, but kind of athletic kid, basketball type of body. And he can just score and create his own shots and shoot from the outside. Like, that is the easy comp. that apparently, again, according to Mountaineer Paul in his video, West Virginia is paying in the ballpark of $1.5 million. So that makes sense when you get an Eaglestaff commits in late March to South Carolina over the likes of Gonzaga, Kansas, Kentucky, at least those latter two. Two of the blue bloods of college basketball, Gonzaga, a national brand in men's basketball, South Carolina, an SEC school, so bankrolled by ESPN TV money, so they can go out there and spend that for a guy who was top 50 in the nation in scoring, 18.9 points per game, had 40 against Alabama on December 18th, also had a 51-point game against rival South Dakota State on March 7th, but he's a volume shooter. So 490 attempts, that's the 42nd most attempts of anyone in college basketball. Just to compare, and I know there were some games in which you would have liked Javon Small to potentially be a little more aggressive, a little bit more selfish, rather than trying to defer to his opponents and get them involved. But Javon Small still took a lot of shots. He took 438. Eaglestaff took 490. So you can just see how many shots the offense flowed through him for North Dakota, and he took them, as far as he could take them. Not a lot in the steals, not a lot in the rebound department. So the first question I have is, how's that going to translate to Coach Hodge's, apparently defensive first mindset and system when Eaglestaff is very clearly an offensive only kind of guy. But I feel like he can create his own shot watching his highlight tape like many of the go-to scorers West Virginia's had in recent memory. I'm talking Javon Small. I'm talking Eric Stevenson, Deuce McBride, Jay-Sean Page. I just, again, can work around that two-man game and the pick and roll, the way that he's able to move around screens, also step back shots. I think like an acquired taste that I'm going to have is his more like just quick flick on his shots, not a little more elongated, smooth type of, he's kind of a flicker, if you want to call it that. So I think I'm going to have to watch him a little bit more, especially for this Mountaineer team, till I can kind of digest his game a little bit more. But the numbers I just gave you right there, he can prove it. He's going to be this go-to alongside, Huff. If Huff is just going to be a three-point sharp shooter, and you have Eaglestaff who can go out there and create his own type of shot, it's going to be interesting to see how guys like Floyd, Laurent, Obioa get him involved, and what does the offense look like, and how much do they dictate pace. Trying to see the 40,000 foot view of what this offense is going to look like. I feel like you have your Press Virginia days of Javon Carter, Daxter Miles Jr. That is like full speed, hit the nos, you're going as fast as humanly possible, up-tempo, full-court pressure. Dial that back just a tad, and you have Darren DeVries's free-flowing, you can shoot whenever you want, we're going to shoot from the outside, take you back to those Bahamas games, high-scoring, first team to 90 wins. That's the kind of speed that they play. And then you go back fourth gear, and I'm going back to your 2010 Big East champion West Virginia days, where it was look like chickens with your heads cut off for 35 seconds of the shot clock, have no idea what we're doing, stand around, oh, Deshaun Butler, throw up a prayer at the final second of the shot clock, save us the game, and we're going to win 56-54 over UConn. Or even some, again, those Press Virginia games with Javon Carter could get ugly offensively. It just feels like this was one of my harshest criticisms. For as much as I love Coach Huggins, so much about him, his offensive systems never made sense to me. West Virginia was always bailed out by a star, and it was either the Press Virginia years where they had that as a part of their scheme, or an unsung hero like a Joe Alexander, a Deshaun Butler, an Alex Ruoff. They're like the mid 2000s. The point guard before Javon Carter, losing my mind. He was an assistant coach for a time. Sorry, I'm blanking out here, but that's the kind of like, that's what I don't want to go back to. I don't want to regress. Again, if Coach Hodge is this defensive first minded guy, I don't want the offense to get stuck in neutral and we're just having rock fight old Big East games. I hope there is a middle ground. I hope there's a balance, a compromise between, yes, we want to play amazing defense, but I'm sorry, it's not defense wins championships in basketball. It's offense. Good offenses. And like, okay, all right, you can counter me with, all right, Carson, Houston was one of the greatest defensive teams we've ever seen, and they made it all the way to the national championship game this past season. But I'm sorry, but good offense beats good defense in basketball. So I want to see West Virginia to continue that kind of mold as DeVries had. And when you got guys like Huff and Eaglestaff on your offense, make it work. That's going to be, I feel like when we do the season preview next fall, we're going to talk about how can Coach Hodge, I think I'll have to watch more tape over the spring and summer to kind of find out some of those, watch some of those games that North Texas had to kind of figure out his offensive system, how he wants to run it. Is he going to use more clock, or are they going to try and push the tempo, especially in transition? Felt like, a lot of times Coach Huggins wouldn't want West Virginia to, which always drove me crazy in transition and secondary offenses out of transition to get a quick open look rather than kicking it back, trying setting up an offense and using all of the shot clock. So I don't want to see that anymore. I want to see a nice compromise between what Coach DeVries started in year one and then left, and in that of the Huggins era and what Coach Hodge can say. And that's what I want to see out of Eaglestaff. So he can be that guy. When he doesn't have open looks, find Honor Huff for three, work the ball inside to Brennan Laurent. So that's kind of where West Virginia is at the moment. So again, walking through. So if you're looking at a starting lineup right now here at late April, Floyd at the 1, running the point. Huff as your 2 shooting guard, Trace and Eaglestaff at the 3, your small forward, either Brennan Laurent or Jackson Fields. I would probably err on the side of Laurent being your starting 4 power forward, and Harlan Obioa at least at the, again, starting center for right now, unless there's another big-bodied guy that West Virginia brings in who can kind of split time with him. And then coming off the bench, you have DeAndre Thomas Jr., your only freshman commit, Jackson Fields from Troy, and also Chance Moore from St. Bonaventure. So I don't think West Virginia is done just yet. Has 8 commits. Sounds like they're really in on, by all reports, this guy Marcus, a.k.a. Smurf Millender from UTSA. Major minutes getter for UTSA. 15 points per game scorer for them. The Roadrunners, I believe. Shot 44%. Including 44% from 3. So another sharpshooter to complement Huff. Like, what is the ceiling for this West Virginia offense? There's a couple of guys that West Virginia has former teammates of guys who are joining West Virginia. So you don't know if that's just like social media talk, like, hey, let's link up, come to West Virginia, kind of something like that. And then I don't know what the chances are. It doesn't sound, likely. But a guy like Braden Hawthorne, in-state recruit, top 75 in the country that West Virginia had found previously, had committed, 6'8", 175, 4-star, revisited West Virginia over the Easter weekend. I'm sorry. This was the weekend prior, so April 12th. But it sounds like Kentucky's hot on his trail. Does he get mistaken like the aura of Big Blue Nation and, let's go be a part of the SEC and stuff, like something like that? Or does he want to come and be, a guy that he can grow alongside this majorly, top-heavy senior class to then be that leader? Because that's where I think there's got to be a balance. We do, but we don't necessarily have enough evidence, I feel like, across college basketball from teams, and I don't want to continue to do this year in and year out, that West Virginia replaces an entire roster full of guys who are moving on, either graduating or moving on to the NBA, and you have to completely replace it year in, for a one-year thing. I don't think the data is still out on that, on whether that's more beneficial or it's more just for guys, that you can kind of at least bring in one, maybe two, if it's both Thomas and Hawthorne, and kind of try and grow into your system, because you like to look ahead and have some sort of continuity that you can think, all right, next year you don't have to bring in so many pieces to gel and have a whole new team. So whether it's Hawthorne, whether West Virginia gets Hawthorne or not, like to be determined, but feel really good about Millender's potential. I feel like West Virginia, if they can get to 12 guys, 2 more guards, another big, and maybe one more forward. You got to remember that with the impending house settlement coming in and the roster limits that were set earlier this past fall as part of the settlement, you can only keep now 15 guys as part of your roster. So you have 8. You can add up to 7. With the cost that West Virginia is already investing into the 8 guys that are apparently on the team, how much more can be invested? How high is this roster going to go? It has to be one of the most invested in rosters in the entire country. Now, unfortunately, we don't get those numbers. We're not privy to that information. You will get to know, I feel like, more of that as the house settlement comes down and we find out, again, how much of a percentage is being allocated to men's basketball, how much versus football, baseball, the other Olympic sports, but you can only have 15 guys as part of the roster. So if you have a core 8, but then, say Coach Hodge, wants to, maybe he gets somehow, some way gets Hawthorne, somehow, some way gets Millender, that's 10, and they fill out the rest of the roster with maybe, some D2 guys or guys who are kind of like low-grade mid-major who are just, again, attracted by the idea of coming and competing, competing for a Power 4 program. Again, Big 12, if you want to say it's the second best conference in America behind the SEC or the best, like if you want to come play for a program who may not win the Big 12, but definitely feel good about finishing in the top half. And I feel really good about if that team from a year ago almost made the NCAA tournament. I feel as if the investment that is being made in this basketball roster right now, I hate to say blows out of the water, because you had a transcendent player, I feel like, in Javon Small, and a guy, and I know he's persona non grata in Tucker DeVries, but was one of the top, I think, 2 to 3 transfer portal additions of any team in the country this past offseason. So if you'd had Tucker for an entire season, had Small, that was definitely even the way all the chips fell, was an NCAA tournament caliber team. But right there, I think with the guys that you have as part of this starting 5 and the guys off the bench, there is quality, y'all. There is really good quality. So can West Virginia fill out the quantity, the rest of what this roster could potentially be, with some guys who might not see as many minutes, might just be used purely for practice purposes and stuff like that, because it's hard to run a practice, I feel like, with only 5 guys. You can only do so much. You can't really go offense versus defense if you don't have 10. So you definitely got to get to 10. Can you get to even 12, I feel like, of what you may consider scholarship play, formerly known as scholarship players, and then you're kind of just filling guys also in on the roster to kind of compete like a, whether you call it, unfortunately, like a Jake Auer this past season. High quality guy who can go against your ones in practice. But ultimately, I know I'm almost 45 minutes in, so I don't want to go much longer here. I really think West Virginia is making a case from the investment they're putting into this roster that they are positioning themselves for an NCAA tournament team next year. Wow. I think I don't want to get too ahead of myself again with so many months ahead. Like we're still talking almost 7 months, I feel like, before the season starts. But I feel like you can feel really good or also really bad about your team the way, you going into the off season with the talent that you have already on your roster. And I really like what I see about these guys and how they complement each other with their character traits, physical abilities, stuff like that. So what do you think? You feel really good about this men's basketball roster? A lot of guys who, again, are coming from mid-major levels. How are they all going to gel in the Big 12? Do they still have... I know they only have 8 guys, so obviously depth would be a concern, but you may have more coming. Very strongly may have more coming. And we really didn't have much time to talk about, like, wow, where is this money coming from? How is this something to just, spiting football? I would have never guessed this. Again, going into the 2024 football season, that are we now talking about that there is more of an investment in men's basketball than there is in football. So I'll have to break that down for you when I talk about the roster management episode maybe a little bit further. But for right now, wow, kudos to what's going on behind the scenes with this roster management operation by Coach Hodge and his staff, who has also got some new additions to the staff. So if you like this video, please like it so more Mountaineer fans can see it across YouTube. I'd love to have you as subscribers to my channel if you like what I'm doing and want to support. It doesn't sign you up for anything, just gets you notifications so whenever I come on and have these crazy hot takes that you have something to listen to. So I hope you enjoy it. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog that I do this each and every week and have a lot of fun doing it. And I'll be back to talk football maybe late end of this week or over the weekend or something like that. So appreciate having you. Let's go. Hail West Virginia.